There's a place tucked deep in the heart of Central Asia where mountains cover 90% of the land. Where ancient Silk Road routes once crisscrossed between empires, and where even today nomadic life still shapes the rhythm of everyday moments. This is Kyrgyzstan. It's small on the map, but massive in experience. 1 minute you're walking through a busy capital, the next you're sharing a meal in yurt, surrounded by mountains and animals. No roads, no signal, just real life. We set out to explore this country the way it deserves to be seen, off the beaten track. Through wild landscapes, local traditions, remote villages, and places you can only reach by hiking, horseback, or sheer determination. It wasn't always easy. We got stuck, got lost, dealt with everything from freezing nights to car trouble. But it turned out to be one of the most rewarding trips I ever taken. So if you're ready for mountain roads, eagle hunters, nomadic culture, unexpected kindness, and some seriously breathtaking scenery, the journey starts in Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan. It's the biggest city in the country and kind of the main hub for everything. The mountains are right here too, the Kyrgyz Alato Range. You can literally see them from the city and they make the whole place feel way more dramatic. One of the first places I checked out was Osh Bazaar, which is probably the best way to get a feel for the local vibe. What stood out most was how friendly people were. A lot of them offered us samples, try this, taste that, even if we weren't buying anything. That made it feel less touristy and more like everyday life. Bishkek surprised me a bit. It's got that big city feel, but it's also relaxed, not overly touristy, which I liked. But even while exploring it, I could feel myself getting excited for what's coming next. Because the real reason I came to Kyrgyzstan was for the nature. And that part, that was just getting started. One of the first places we explored was the Valley of Forgotten Rivers, and the name really makes sense once you see it. It's a wide valley filled with the traces of ancient rivers that used to run down the mountains into Issyk-Kul Lake. Now they're dry, but the shapes they left behind are still clearly visible, long winding channels carved into the ground. The main canyon cuts through the center and it's wide enough to drive through, which we did. Dozens of smaller dried up streams branch off in every direction, spreading out across the valley. Behind you, there's a backdrop of snowy mountains, and if the light is just right, you can catch the turquoise shimmer of Issyk-Kul in the distance. There's also a hill you can climb for a better view. It's not a tough walk, but the perspective from the top makes a big difference. If you're there during sunrise or sunset, the way the light hits the landscape, casting shadows across the dried riverbeds, makes it feel even more special. It's one of those places where you really start to understand how much time shaped this land, slowly, over centuries, layer by layer. And from there, the journey shifted. From canyons and dry riverbeds, we moved into something much more human. The ancient practice of eagle hunting, kept alive by the nomadic people of this region. The hunters are called Burkachi, and this tradition has been part of life in Central Asia for thousands of years. It was passed down through generations, father to son, until Soviet times, when nomadic life was pushed aside and a lot of these customs nearly disappeared. Today, the tradition is still alive, not because it's needed for survival anymore, but because it's part of Kyrgyz identity. Hunters usually work with female golden eagles. They are larger, more aggressive, and more reliable when it comes to hunting. But really, the most important part is the bond between the hunter and the bird, the trust that takes years to build. Seeing it in person, up close, was something else. You realize this isn't just for show, it still means something. And to close out the day, we stayed a little longer to take in another part of Kyrgyz culture: traditional music.
Havalardan kalgan turmuş ırgağı, bulca sonun kırpı kömül açılar.
A lot of the songs come from nomadic life. The melodies echo the sounds of nature, the rhythm of horseback travel, even the quiet moments out in the open. It's simple, but it really pulls you in. And honestly, there's no better way to hear it than sitting outside by a bonfire, surrounded by the landscape it was made for. After that quiet night by the bonfire, music, mountains, and the crackling fire, I knew I wanted more of that. More space, more silence, so the journey continued. This time deeper into nature, somewhere more remote. I wanted to see the snowy peaks and wide green valleys I had only read about. One place kept coming up: Sakhri Jaz Valley. It's known as one of the most untouched parts of Kyrgyzstan, tucked away near the Chinese border, definitely off the beaten path, and it sounded like exactly the kind of place I was looking for. After a few hours on the road, we reached Englichek, a town that feels frozen in time, almost like a ghost town. This region used to be an active mining area, rich in tungsten, tin, molybdenum, all kinds of metals. Back in the Soviet days, young people from across the Union came here to live and work, hoping to settle down. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, everything changed. The jobs disappeared, and so did the people. Today, only about 30 families remain. We passed rows of abandoned apartment blocks, a school, a hospital, even a playground, all still standing but empty. After Englichek, we continued on, and then, finally, the view opened up. Green pastures, snowy peaks, and nothing else around. We made it to Sakhri Jaz Valley. We didn't plan to stay with anyone, but I walked up to a house to ask if we could camp nearby. A friendly man named Bahram opened the door, and before I could finish my sentence, he invited us in.
Generosity of the people here, huh?
He offered us food right away, then gave us a quick tour of his home, which sits in one of the most beautiful spots I've seen. right beneath the mountains surrounded by open land. As we filmed, he got curious and started asking how the camera worked, so we handed it over and let him try for himself. Bahram shares this summer home with his brother Kanat and Azret, who's only 14. They spend their summers here looking after the animals. In winter, they move to Karakol. Well, all except Kanat, who stays behind to take care of 400 yaks. We spent the whole day with them, watching them tend to their animals, walking around, just taking in the calm. They clearly care deeply for their animals and for the land. In the evening, they all joined together to cook us dinner. While the food was being prepared, we showed them a few clips we filmed and later sat down to share a warm, home-cooked meal. The next morning, we asked if we could borrow a couple of horses to get closer to the mountains. They smiled and nodded. No problem. The Sakhri Jaz Valley is a dream for anyone who loves raw nature. It stretches from 2,700 up to 3,600 meters above sea level. And on a clear day, you can even spot Khan Tengri, one of the tallest peaks in Kyrgyzstan, standing at 7,010 meters. We visited in August and still the nights and early mornings were freezing. The Sakhri Jaz River runs through the valley, one of the biggest mountain rivers in central Tian Shan. It's fed by glaciers and melting snow from the Muzdak mountain range and flows for almost 200 kilometers before crossing into China. It felt like we were at the edge of the world, one of the most remote places I've ever been. And what made it even more special was the people. The way they welcomed us, without asking for anything, without even thinking twice. You don't see that often, especially not where I'm from. But here, it felt normal, and I won't forget it. After the quiet of Sakhri Jaz Valley, we returned to something a bit more lively. As we approached Karakol, I realized it was Sunday. And that meant one thing: the livestock market. This weekly animal bazaar is one of the biggest in the region, and people come from all over to buy and sell livestock. Some travel for days just to be here. We got there early. And you need to, because most of the action happens before 10 a.m. It's a lively scene, locals loading sheep into the back of their ladas, or at least trying to. Not every animal is cooperative, especially the bigger ones. The market is split into two main areas, one for sheep and goats and the other for horses and cattle. I wandered through the rows, chatted with a few sellers, and even asked around about prices.
5,000, 5,000. 10.
Not.
15. So it's like 150 euros for a goat. Whew. Okay, expensive.
People are bargaining, sizing up animals, checking how much fat sits on the tail of a sheep, or testing out horses with a quick trot. It's a mix of noise, movement, and somehow calm. Despite the crowds, the place feels organized. It's more than just a market, it's a glimpse into a daily life out here, a place where tradition and trade still go hand in hand. It was the perfect way to spend the morning before heading out again, back in the mountains. We had heard about Tosor Pass. Some people told us not to try it. A rough road, high altitude, weather can change fast. But we couldn't resist. Tosor Pass is one of the highest mountain roads in Kyrgyzstan. sitting at 3,893 meters above sea level. It crosses the Terskei Alato Range, connecting the southern shore of Isyk-Kul to Naryn region. It's not a road for just any car. You'll need a 4x4 and ideally some experience. There are river crossings, loose rocks, big boulders. It's not exactly smooth, but that's part of the fun. As we made our way through, we passed people living up here for the summer. Herders with their animals setting up camp in yurts. Sheep, goats, horses, all just wandering around freely. The scenery was unreal. Every few minutes it changed completely. Wide green meadows, rocky cliffs, snowy peaks. You're driving, but it never feels boring. And to enjoy all that at nearly 3,800 meters with fresh mountain air and complete silence, there's just nothing quite like it. Toward the end of the day, we watched local men gathering up their sheep, leading them back to camp for the night. It felt timeless, so we parked the car, found a quiet hill above one of the yurts, and set up our tent. We decided to stay. The next morning, I wanted to learn more about what life's like up here. So we walked down to visit the family living nearby. Translation apps were doing their best, but let's just say not always successfully.
No criminal dump, almost mama said snitch shut up samosa.
Eventually, we agreed that we could film a bit of their daily routine. But first, a sort of a welcome ritual. They handed us a bowl of kumis, fermented horse milk. It's traditional here and very popular across Central Asia. I've had it before, but this one...
Sorry.
Probably not something I'd rush to try again. Apparently, we passed the test, because next up, cow milking. They start by releasing the calf, which runs straight to its mother. Then they step in and get to work. They offered to let me try.
So I was raised in a village. I never did this, so Mom, Dad, hope this will make you proud. Just go. Okay.
Сосай, брат, сосай.
Not working.
Окей,
It's
все окей.
empty.
Да, еще сильнее.
Oh, this is hard. Look, Mom, I'm milking a cow.
Turns out, I'm terrible at it. It would probably take me a whole day to fill one bucket. Better to leave that to the professionals. After milking, it was time to let the goats out to graze. A young kid, probably no older than 15, took charge of them for the day. The adults, meanwhile, loaded up a truck and headed out, maybe to the market. It made me stop and think. Imagine spending the whole summer up here, completely off the grid, just you, the animals, and the mountains. I'm not sure I could do it for long, but there's definitely something peaceful about it. Something real. Far away from the noise and rush of everyday life. We continued driving through the Kichi-Naryn Gorge, and it was honestly one of the most scenic stretches we'd seen so far. Winding roads, deep valleys, a river on one side, cliffs on the other. Just pure nature all around. Our goal, one of the most remote and beautiful places in the country, Lake Kholsu, near the border with China. You need a special permit to enter the area, so make sure that's sorted in advance. Getting there wasn't easy. The road through the mountains was muddy and rough. At one point, we were genuinely surprised we made it at all. Eventually, we reached Kokkia Valley, the starting point for the hike. From there, you can either go on foot, hire a local jeep, or take a horse. But we decided to hike, partly for the adventure and partly because the scenery is just too good to rush through. The hike is about 7 kilometers, maybe 3 hours of walking. It's not too difficult, but there are a few challenges. At one point, you'll need to cross a river, and yes, the water is freezing. There's no way around it, you just go in. After the river, the trail climbs uphill, but the reward at the top is more than worth it. That's where you'll see it, Lake Kolsu. Sitting at 3,500 meters above sea level, surrounded by tall granite cliffs, the lake appears almost out of nowhere, glowing with this deep, unreal shade of blue. It was formed when a landslide, likely triggered by an earthquake, blocked the Kurumduk River, creating a natural dam. The lake now stretches more than 12 kilometers, and in some spots it reaches depths of up to 80 meters. Once you arrive, there's usually a small boat and local guide available for a short tour across the lake. Definitely worth doing, even just to see those cliffs from the water. We actually returned another day, the weather was clearer and we wanted to see the lake again. That time we decided to try driving all the way in our own car. You can get closer by a vehicle, but only if you know how to cross the river. And it's not exactly straightforward. We managed the crossing, but our drive didn't last long. A few minutes later, we got completely stuck in the mud. Thankfully, a local showed up out of nowhere and helped us out. Just another moment of that Kyrgyz hospitality we kept running into again and again. Kolsu isn't easy to get to, but that's part of what makes it special. The effort, the remoteness, the silence, it all adds up to something unforgettable. It feels like a place that's still holding onto its mystery, and we were lucky enough to step into it, even just for a moment. On our way back from Kolsu, heading toward our next destination, we made a stop at Tashrabat, a historic caravanserai along the ancient Silk Road. It was built in 15th century and honestly, it's incredibly well preserved. Caravanserais like this were basically roadside inns, places where merchants could rest while crossing long and dangerous routes. This one was especially important because of its location. Sitting near the Tian Shan Mountains, it wasn't just a place to sleep, it also offered protection from the elements and from robbers. Even today, tucked into the hills like that, it still has that quiet, sheltered feeling. From there, we continued over another mountain pass, and somewhere along the way, we found the perfect place to stop for the night. I don't think I'll ever get tired of evenings like this, surrounded by nature, herders, animals, and just silence. No campsites, no rules, just pick a spot, pitch your tent, and take it all in.
Chicken or pasta? Sadly, we only have pasta.
We cooked dinner right there, with the mountains around us, and yeah, not a bad view for a kitchen. In the morning, we woke up to an incredible sunrise, the kind that makes it really hard to leave. We packed up, went through our usual routine, and set off again, this time toward another stunning lake, Songkul. At 3,016 meters above sea level, it's one of the most popular destinations in Kyrgyzstan. And as it turned out, our timing couldn't have been better. We arrived just as Kochkor Fest was kicking off, a local festival that turned out to be the perfect way to wrap up the trip. It was a great chance to dive deeper into local traditions and cultures. We saw dance performances, watched how borsok, the local fried dough, was made, danced a bit ourselves, tried out a game of tug of war. And then came the main event, the horse games. It started with Air Enesh, horseback wrestling. The goal is simple: pull your opponent off their horse. Doesn't matter how, just make sure part of their body touches the ground. When they asked if I wanted to try it, of course I said yes. And yeah, in my head I was totally in warrior mode. But watching the footage later, I'm not sure I did that much. Still, the match ended in draw. Not bad for a first try, right? Next up was Kuz Kumai, a traditional game between a guy and a girl, both on horseback. She gets a head start, and he has to catch up and kiss her while riding at full speed. If he fails, she gets to hit him with a whip. The real highlight for me was the Kokboru, probably the most intense and famous traditional sport in Central Asia. Two teams on horseback fight to grab the carcass of headless goat, which can weigh up to 40 kilos, and score by throwing it into the opposing team's goal. They can wrestle it from each other, pass it, or even fling it across the field. Historically, this wasn't just a game, it was training. It taught men and horses to be fearless, brave, and battle-ready. Watching it live was something else. Dust flying, horses thundering across the field, players locked in, giving everything. It looked like chaos, but somehow controlled. It was intense, it was loud, and it was unforgettable. An adrenaline rush, even from the sidelines. As the Kokboru match came to an end, it was time to start descending from the mountains and slowly make our way back to civilization. But not without one last scenic detour. We took the Terskei Torpok Pass, also known as the 33 Parrots Pass. It's a winding mountain road that zigzags its way up steep slopes connecting two high peaks. From above, it looks like a jagged scar running across the landscape. Sharp turns carved right into the mountains. And if you try to count the switchbacks, there are definitely more than 33. To mark the end of the pass, we stopped at a spot along the Songkul River where a powerful waterfall crashes down through the rocks. It felt like the right moment to try something refreshing, a quick dip in the river. We were expecting ice-cold water, but honestly, it wasn't that bad, around 18 degrees Celsius. Still, the hard part wasn't the temperature, it was standing still in the current. Staying in one place was a full body workout. But after days of dust, hikes and mountain roads, it was exactly what we needed. Kyrgyzstan is one of those rare places that still feels wild, still real, where you can keep your adventurous spirit alive. Ride through open valleys on horseback, drive across remote mountain passes, sleep under starry skies, and breathe in air that feels untouched. But what truly stayed with me was the people, their warmth, their generosity. Stranger inviting us into their homes, offering food, stories, a place to stay, no questions asked. That kind of hospitality, it's something I won't forget. This was one of the toughest trips I've ever done. We had our share of problems, especially with the car, but I wouldn't trade any of it, because I had a great crew with me and together we made something really special. I hope this film brought Kyrgyzstan a little closer to you and maybe sparked something. Because honestly, I've only scratched the surface of what this country has to offer. And until we meet again on another adventure, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and stay curious about this incredible planet we all share. See you in the next one, and until then, be mesmerized.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go.
To grate Kyrgyz cheese, best way is to do it like this. Hey guys, do you want me to do it for you too?